Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Tom Homan just slams these reporters and hits home run after home run. I think he might need to change his name to how many home runs he hits in this segment. Let's dive in.
Do you have any cost estimates on reopening of Alcatraz?
I just answered that. I mean, it's on the table. It should be on the table because we need detention beds, and I think that's an appropriate place for the significant public safety threats, national security threats. Why not? I mean, what's the difference between
But
that?
do you have an idea how expensive it would be?
I have no idea.
How many countries are you in talks with potentially?
No comment.
What sort of impact do you see it having the self-deportation, offering $1,000 down for two illegal immigrants to self-deport through the app?
Well, I think you'll have some movement, right? Because I think people are finally getting the message. If you leave on your own, you can take advantage of legal programs, come back. But we have to go through the process of formally deporting you. There are mandatory bars against you for up to 20 years, sometimes forever. So, if you want to take advantage, come back as a worker, a tourist visa, a visitor's visa, a student visa, or have a U.S. citizen child if you have one, petition for you in the future. Leave yourself open to the opportunity of legal entry. Do things the right way. There's millions of people standing in line right now doing things the right way. Taking the test, doing the background investigations, paying their fees. They're sitting in the back seat. While millions of people are allowed into this country under the Biden administration that simply don't qualify for asylum. Most of them will lose that asylum claim. So while they're clogging up the whole system, in addition to those who want to come in legally, while the millions of fraudulent asylum claims under Biden administration, there are people in this world who really are escaping fear and persecution from the homeland. But they're sitting in the back seat too because millions of people cheated the system, come across the border and released in the United States that caused a significant backlog in immigration court. And that wasn't by accident, it's by design. Let's just overwhelm the system so it takes 5, 7, 9 years to go through the whole process if they take advantage of the appeals process. They know exactly what they're doing. That's why they weren't in ICE detention. Because in ICE detention, they get a hearing within 35 days. But for release, millions of the country overwhelm the system so they don't get a hearing in 5, 7, 9 years. Then maybe there's a Democrat administration in power. Now we can have an amnesty. They know exactly what they're doing. They're playing the long game. But we're going to beat them at it. We're going to ramp up interior enforcement operations and removals. We're going to force the law. We're not going to ignore the law like the prior administration did.
The president says he doesn't know what his responsibilities are under Article 5 of the Constitution. Who would it be who would educate him about that? Would it be you?
I think the president is one of the, if not the most knowledgeable president that we've ever had. Look, people can beat on President Trump all you want. President Trump's a game changer. I've worked for 6 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan. I'm a border guy. Even President Clinton and Obama took steps to secure the border because they understood you can't have national security if you don't have border security. No one did more than President Trump during his first administration. We handed the Biden administration the most secure border in my lifetime, and he purposely unsecured it. First president in history of the nation to do that. Look at what President Trump achieved in 8 weeks. He did in 8 weeks what Joe Biden couldn't and wouldn't do in 4 years. We have the most secure border in the history of this nation right now because of President Trump. Greatest president in my lifetime. You can quote me on that.
Like I said, y'all, Tom Homan just hits home run after home run. And there's a couple of questions I actually have huge problems with. The first one, the idea of what's the cost to reopen Alcatraz? That's a joke. Okay? It is a joke that we might have to reopen Alcatraz, but it's a joke with a point and purpose. The offhand comment of saying, we might have to reopen Alcatraz prison. We're looking into all offers and details. What's really going on there is that he's saying that we need to change the way that we deal with prisoners in the United States. We've got to do something because we're kind of full. All right, something's going to have to be done, and amnesty isn't exactly the best way to go around it. Furthermore, the success story that is El Salvador has made prisons look a little bit more like they work if you adhere to a certain couple of guiding principles, and particularly when you're dealing with these violent gang members and illegal migrants who are part of these violent gangs, and so on and so forth. But that second question, irks me more than the first one, because the first one is once again an attempt to misconstrue what Trump has to say and completely just dump all over his style. Also, it's a blatant attempt to miss the point and purpose that we do definitely need an attempt to redo the way we deal with immigration, particularly when it comes to violent criminals. So, yeah, joking about Alcatraz is a smart idea. Asking about how much it costs, definitely not as smart. But something even dumber is the question asking Tom Homan himself, are you the person to explain Article 5 to the President of the United States? Now, normally when I hear Article 5, I immediately think NATO and, oh, good grief, what did Russia do this time? But no, that's not what Article 5 has to deal with. The Article 5 that is asked here is the Article 5 of the Constitution. And it basically goes along like this. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments, and then so on and so forth down to the states. 3/4 of the states can amend the Constitution as well. And I'm actually down for a constitutional convention. I think there's a way to help streamline some other processes. Doge can't do everything, folks. And neither can Donald Trump, but that's not a real problem. The problem is asking what the president actually knows about the Fifth Amendment. Because what the president said, what Donald Trump ended up saying was, I don't know what I can do to amend the Constitution. What he's really saying there is he knows he has no power. He knows that it's not up to the executive to propose constitutional amendments, to pass constitutional amendments. So he's simply saying that I can't really do anything along these lines. I'd like to. It's an admission that he'd like to streamline some processes. It's an admission that maybe we need to start looking at a few alternatives and a few ways to make things easier for our government to actually work properly. Because we do have a problem. And that problem is lower court judges holding up entire federal processes and procedures, all because of a minor detail. Like for the case of Abreu Garcia, this dude was out there saying, this law firm tried to come in at the last second and say someone didn't dot an I on the entire process. He must be brought back. Well, the reality is they missed the deadline to bring him back, and El Salvador now says, nope, he's our problem now. And the Supreme Court specifically ruled that no, these lower courts cannot dictate major federal pieces of legislation or even how the president is carrying out certain things. What they did say, however, is Trump should bring back Garcia, and I didn't like that part of the decision. There's a huge issue I have that the Supreme Court has this extra, almost extrajudicial, extra governmental power that says what can or cannot be done to the rest of the United States. And that, in my opinion, is murky waters that isn't as strong as I'd like. Again, I'm not an originalist. I am a strict legalist. If it's not specifically written down by the Congress or by the Constitution, then it's up for debate. Now, if the Supreme Court says something, you do need to carry it out. But Donald Trump has carried out Supreme Court orders to the best of his abilities. And the reality is he's going to continue to look for ways to make sure that we're making America safe again. Okay? That has been a massive problem underneath the Biden administration. We didn't have this problem with Clinton or Obama because they knew deep down they needed to protect the border. But something has happened with the liberal mindset that thinks that illegal immigration is secretly this good thing. It's good for America. Well, the reality is it isn't. All right? That is the truth of the matter, and Tom Homan is acing nearly every single one of these questions, and these reporters are doing their best to see if they can catch a gaffe. Well, they're not going to, because Tom Homan hits nothing but dingers. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Until then, y'all have a good one.